Shalom, family. Hey, just checking in again. I hope everybody's doing okay and that you're doing well in your walk. But as I always say, even if you're struggling, it's a good thing because, as we're struggling, that's when we're growing. Because without adversity, it's not possible for us to grow in our understanding of the Most High and even understanding, our true selves, because this process of creation, which is this life, is the building of our character coming into fruition as we go through the hardships and the negative energy of Hasatan, ultimately to overcome that negative energy with the truth of the Ruach HaKodesh, which is the power of Elohim to overcome the works of darkness. So, anyway, but again, family, I continue to make these videos because I'm just trying to put some things for, us to consider. And hopefully in the process of considering these things is that it'll bring you to a place where you begin to ask questions of the Most High, trying to understand yourself and your purpose, because reality, family, if we're living a life without purpose, then it's really like we don't exist, and in the end we're not going to exist in Him, because as He said, only that which is in Hamashiach will stand. Okay, so, and this is what He's talking about with His kingdom. His kingdom's not here yet, but the process of the manifestation of His kingdom has begun. Actually when He came to this earth. Because when He came to the earth, the process really begun, because as He showed us the Father, and then as He conquered death, He sent His Ruach HaKodesh, or the Holy Spirit, to give us the mind and everything we needed to understand the will of our Creator. And this is why we're going through this process of being born again. As I said, our lives is His creation process, because it's in this process of life that we're experiencing everything that Elohim is. So we got to learn how to recognize that so we can embrace the process that He's chosen. Because as we embrace the process of creation that He chose to create all things, ultimately to manifest His kingdom, it says as we embrace this is actually begins our rebirthing process. And as He said, it's that was born of flesh is flesh, but that was born of spirit is spirit. So the reality is we have to be born of the Spirit. And so that's what the born again process is about. As we desire to know the will of our Creator, then we come to know Him as we receive His Spirit. And I keep trying to emphasize that we have to ask for it, because He's not going to give it to those who ain't desiring it. So even though He's given a portion of His Spirit to all men, but at some point, the child of Elohim desires to know the will of his Creator. So he seeks Him diligently with his whole heart. And as he continues to seek Him, then the Father begins to show him all things. But, one of the things we got to understand is that, as He said, that the Ruach HaKodesh will lead you in all truth and teach you all things. But we have to keep in mind, family, that say like the all things, okay, that we need to understand is that we need to understand ourselves first. We need to understand all things of ourselves first before we can truly become the child of Elohim, understanding His purpose and His place, so that we ultimately stay in our lane as the way that Yah meant to create us in, so that we could truly do His will. and perform our destiny. Okay? So anyway, family, I just want to kind of continue on the same thought process of us truly understanding what we're dealing with. And I wanted to make this point too. In the last video, I was talking about, this process, and there was a couple things I was going to get into. And as I listened to it back, I just wanted to clear something up. I talked about a subject of getting into the difference between the soul and the spirit. And so I had mentioned that we were going to get into that. I meant to say on the next video, because as I said, this ain't a lesson, because I'm not trying to teach nobody nothing. I can't teach. I'm not a teacher. That ain't my calling to be a teacher. My calling is to be me. And to the best of my understanding right now, where I'm at, all I'm doing is sharing all thoughts and ideas that the Father is revealing to me. So I just pass this along as food for thought to give you something to consider. Okay, as I said, I'm not trying to judge you or condemn you where you are. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just putting out there thoughts just to meditate on, just to think about. As I said, meditation is no big hoopla fancy deal. It's just thinking. And the thing is, the beauty of, as we receive the Ruach HaKodesh, that's what gives us the ability to think for ourselves, because that's what this is about. And most the masses and most people are trapped in these doldrums of this delusion that we're actually experiencing right now. And they don't grow in the things of the Creator because, they don't think for themselves. The masses have been brainwashed by the system and this spiritual realm that we live in of darkness. So most people are just brainwashed, and they're basically having their buttons pushed as they go through life, responding to external stimuli. Okay? And as I said, our senses, our five senses, is the avenue in which the powers of darkness actually manifest themselves through us and in us to basically cause us to make decisions and different things in our lives based on how we feel. Because the senses is the avenue to your emotions. Okay? So ultimately, whether it comes through the avenue, of sight, touch, taste, smell, or hearing, the bottom line is all of these are avenues to your emotions. So in a fallen state, we make decisions based on how we feel, okay? Or the moment, all right, how we feel. So we make those decisions based on, things without understanding. And see, the spirit, or the spirit of Elohim, what he does is bring forth judgment, our judgment and understanding. And see, this is what's happening as we're going through this process of being born again, and we receive the Ruach of the Most High. It causes us to use judgment, his judgment, when we're dealing with things or facing with things. And so through the understanding of the Most High, we're able to see what's going on in the spirit, or recognize what's going on in the spirit. So what spirits is at work here? So through the wisdom and the knowledge of Elohim, we're able to overcome our senses and put our senses in check as we understand the truth of what we're dealing with through the Holy Spirit. So then we're able to make decisions and choices with the wisdom of our Creator. And as we understand the truth, what it does is our senses ultimately come into agreement with the will of the Father. So as this process is manifesting itself, it's our born again experience, because we're being conformed, or as he said, be not conformed to the image of this world, because the senses is the avenue that we are conformed to the image of this world. But as we're born of the Spirit, we're being transformed into the image of Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay? So we're becoming everything that he is. So we, just like he spoke what his Father spoke, he did the works that he knew of the Father. So he gave esteem to the Most High in everything he did. So the Most High was involved in everything he did in righteousness. And this is what we're being changed into, the same thing. Because as we receive more and more, a greater portion of the Ruach HaKodesh, this is what changes our behavior, because we now get the understanding of Elohim. So that brings forth the power for us to change. Okay, so what we really got to understand and get, family, is that we're in the process of being created. And as we understand, life is the process of creation, the child of Elohim ultimately embraces the process. Because as I mentioned, in the last video, it said the vessel of honor are the ones that being processed. But the vessels of dishonor are the process. Because ultimately the wicked was created to try the righteous. Because as I said, without a process, nothing exists. So we have to go through this process of life that the Most High has chosen, so that he can prove his investment of the Holy Spirit that he's invested in his people, his children. Okay, so I just wanted to emphasize some more points. I think I'll go ahead on and touch on that right now. Like I said, the soul, it's a difference between the soul and the spirit. Okay, the soul is the spirit of our senses. Okay, because everything is spirit. There's nothing that exists that spirits aren't involved. It's like this is the realm, the physical realm that we exist in. It's a material realm that we exist in. So this is the realm of this existence. But this realm that we live in right now is not possible without spirit first. That's what I'm saying, and when I say all things are spirit first, because if there's no spirit, then nothing can exist in the natural. So everything that exists in the natural is because of a spirit, a manifestation of spirit. So what we got to understand, as when it talked about when he created Adam, and the Most High formed him out of the dust of the earth. And then it talked about, and then Yah breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And it said man became a living soul. Now I know a lot of versions out there, some say soul, some say spirit, some say being, or whatever. But the reality is man became a living soul. And so the thing I'm trying to, bring to light is that as he became a living soul, he was not born of the spirit, because that's the difference between our earthly father Adam. He was referred to as the first Adam, but Yeshua was referred to as the second Adam. And what it said is that through the first Adam, all fell into sin. It's what it said. Now, as we look at what happened with Adam, as I said, you know, Adam, his mind, his understanding. See, he was given everything without understanding. That's why he squandered and disobeyed the Most High. As I said, it wasn't even a matter of choice when it came down to it, because the Most High told him, the day that you eat of that tree, you shall surely die. He didn't say if you eat of that tree, because if he said if, then there would have been choice involved. No, he told him that he would eat of that tree. And on that day, he was going to experience spiritual death. See, the thing is, when Adam was created, he had a portion of the Spirit that allowed him to communicate with the Most High. But he wasn't born of the Spirit because he hadn't experienced life without the manifestation of the process of evil. See, we got to get this, the thing about good and evil. We need to understand what those things are from the Creator's mindset. See, we can look at different acts and you can perceive it in different ways. Because one act can appear to be good, but if the motivation of the person that's presenting that act is not pure, and he has some kind of agenda for manifesting that act of good, the Most High looks at the heart. And as far as he's concerned, if the things we do don't edify and glorify him, then he considers it of no value. So in his sight, if it's something to lift up man, then it's evil in his sight. Yet, on the other flip side of that thing, that a person could appear to be doing something wrong. And when I say that, what I'm saying is this: the Most High would never tell us to violate his laws, or violate especially the higher laws of Elohim that we're in the process of learning right now. He would never tell us to go against the laws of nature, because the laws of nature is his perfect will. Okay? And that's where we're headed, becoming subject to his perfect will as he manifests his kingdom. But all I'm really trying to say, family, is that, you know, he said man looks at the outward appearance, but Elohim looks at the heart. Because as we look back in history, there is times that the Most High told Israel or man or whatever, he told them to basically, when they took over a nation or land or whatever, they had to slaughter the inhabitants of that land. All right. Now we look at that on the surface. Okay, I'm going to just use this for example. Okay, Saul. The Most High told Saul, right now the people escapes me right now and I can't remember, but it was a people that Saul was supposed to leave Israel, and the Most High told him to slay the old, the young, the children, the women, everybody, because this people was corrupt. But and it said, don't spare their things either. Don't take none of their things or nothing. Okay, so, but Saul, being in the flesh, he deviated from the Most High's will, and he spared the people he thought was useful. He took on their things and stuff like that. So he disobeyed the Most High, which is why the Most High turned from him. Okay? And eventually David became the king that the Most High wanted. But the point was that Saul was disobedient to the Most High, which is why the Most High cast him off. As it turned out, as history played itself out, the very people that he winded up sparing ultimately became our enemies and a part of the system that we up under today. Now, the point is I'm trying to make is that, yeah, we know everything is playing out according to his will. And it was predetermined to happen the way things are predetermined to happen the way they happen. That's why he's the creator and we are the creatures, created to play out his will. But ultimately, we have to understand as we go through this process, we go through the process of creation, we're learning the ways of Elohim. And we have to learn and understand the ways of him in season as well. Because, as I've said, if we're in a time of war, then we're trying to have peace and be comfortable in a time of war, then we're out of order. Because that's exactly what happened to David. You know, this particular story starts off that in a time that the kings should have been off to battle, but it said David stayed home. Okay, now on the surface it doesn't look like anything's wrong with that. His men's out there fighting and he's just chilling or whatever. That don't seem to be anything bad on the surface. But because it was a time of war, he should have been with his men. But because he stayed home and was chilling when he shouldn't have been, that's how he fell into sin with Bathsheba. Okay? So, just the point I'm just trying to make, we got to be able to see things through the eyes of Elohim. And that's only possible as we're born of the Spirit. And see, this is an advantage that we have today because our forefathers who were not born of the Spirit, but the Spirit was working with them, okay, and leading and guiding them, but they were not born of the Spirit. That's why they fell into the things that they did, and that's why we're in the condition that we're in today. Because, you know, it's ultimately through their disobedience, they just evolved into a people that was worse than the people we were supposed to be ministering to and showing the way. You know, Israel has never lived up to its destiny and the things that Yah wanted it to be, to use to be a blessings to the other nations. Okay, Israel's never been that. Well, right now what's happening is as Yah is bringing us into his deeper truths, the higher laws that's going to give us the power to change so that we can truly manifest everything that he is and be a light to the other nations. And also understanding that as we talk about the law of love, which is, that's why he said, I give you a new commandment. And it was talking about the laws of love. But what was held from us through these versions of the scriptures that's been presented to us by our oppressors to keep us subservient and keep us in a position where as we don't understand and know our Elohim, we keep sinning against him. Thus our captivity continues. All right, the law of love, he was talking about the love for all his creation. You know, understanding that all the animals and all other creatures in this world that he's put the breath of life in is that they're our brothers and sisters because we're made of the same substance. It's just that as we have different callings and purposes in our lives, this is why he made us the way he made us. But we weren't supposed to rule over them and dominate them like we've done and misusing them and abusing them and all of these things. We're supposed to assist with creation. But see, we don't know that because we don't understand the calling that the Most High have on our lives. And that's where our problem lies in. So anyway, I think, family, I'm going to take a little break because I ain't sure on that time. I looked right at that clock and I still didn't get it. So excuse me, I'm going to take a little break and then we'll pick back up, you know, what we're talking about. Excuse me, shalom.